All right, welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're unpacking the hidden mechanics of an absolute early 2000s juggernaut, How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. But we're not just looking at this as a classic Kate Hudson and Matthew McConaughey rom-com. No, we're diving much deeper. We're treating this movie as a meticulously engineered corporate product. It is a wildly fascinating case study of early 2000s Hollywood, so let's just jump right in. Taking a quick look at the agenda, we'll see how this builds from a simple recap into a multi-layered analysis. We've got 1. A box office juggernaut, 2. The dual bet engine, 3. Critics versus chemistry, 4. The corporate billboard, 5. The $6 million diamond, and 6. The rom-com's downfall. So starting off with part 1, a box office juggernaut. Let's set the stage by establishing the sheer scale and the insanely high stakes of this 2003 theatrical release. To put this into perspective, against an estimated production budget of maybe $50 to $60 million, the film raked in a staggering $178.5 million globally. I mean, that is a return of about 3.6 times its budget. And honestly, its financial lifespan didn't just end at the theater. It sold millions of physical copies and remains a massive hit in syndication today. Actually, Matthew McConaughey has even publicly admitted that the residuals from this specific movie are still one of his most consistent and lucrative sources of ongoing revenue. Now take a look at this box office trajectory, specifically that percentage revenue change week over week. It's actually kind of mind-blowing. In its second week, it only dropped 21%. By week 4, just a 12% drop. In the super volatile world of theatrical releases, drops that low are practically unheard of. It just goes to show that this film had legendary box office legs, completely fueled by this incredibly positive word of mouth from audiences who literally just couldn't get enough of it. Which brings us to section 2, the dual bet engine. To really understand that crazy financial durability we just talked about, we have to look under the hood at the film's narrative mechanics, which, oddly enough, were adapted from a simple comedic stick figure dating guide. This brilliantly illustrates the true engine driving the whole movie, these mutually exclusive, totally deceptive agendas. On one hand, you have Andy Anderson. She desperately wants to write about real global politics like the crisis in Tajikistan, but she's totally stuck writing fluff pieces at a women's magazine. Her only ticket out? Pitch an immersive column where she dates a guy and actively sabotages the relationship in exactly 10 days. But then on the flip side, we have ad exec Benjamin Barry. He needs to land a prestigious diamond campaign. And to do it, he makes a bet with his boss that he can make any woman fall head over heels in love with him in that exact same 10-day window. So this double bet creates the absolute perfect storm for comedic friction. Andy just launches this psychological war of totally suffocating behaviors. I mean, she overhauls his apartment with pink floral patterns and stocks the bathroom with Vagisil. She brings home an unhousebroken dog that she purposely names Crawl just to emasculate his private nickname for his anatomy. And she completely hijacks his sacred guys' night poker game. But my personal favorite? Demanding a Diet Coke, no ice during the final high-stakes seconds of a New York Knicks game. And through all of this madness, Ben just sits there and endures every single second with complete patience, all because he needs to win that doloured Diamonds account. All right, moving on to section 3, critics versus chemistry. Because despite audiences eating up the screwball energy between Kate Hudson and Matthew McConaughey, contemporary critics and modern psychologists were fiercely divided on the film's actual merits. Take famed film critic Roger Ebert, for example, who offered this absolutely brutal takedown. He argued that the fundamental premise of the movie was completely flawed. Because both characters are actively lying to each other for, 90% of the runtime? Ebert felt it established this deeply deceptive subtext that ruined the romance and completely alienated the audience. He was basically saying, it's impossible to root for two people who are being this incredibly fake and cruel to one another. But hold on a second, let's look at this through a modern psychological lens. A lot of contemporary reevaluations actually see their totally chaotic relationship as a fascinating study in disorganized attachment. They treat romantic intimacy as a pure transaction just to protect their professional ambitions. Plus, a lot of analysts point out that Andy's unhinged behavior is actually this brilliant, exaggerated critique of real-world early 2000s dating advice, the kind that constantly told women to suppress their actual personalities. It's really a snapshot of just how exhausting those dating norms had become. Which seamlessly brings us to section 4, the corporate billboard. Because, you see, the true hidden agenda of this film wasn't just the bet between the main characters. No, it was the studio's massive commercial integration strategy. it really forces us to ask kind of a wild question. Was this actually a movie? Or was it just a pioneering corporate billboard wearing a romantic comedy disguise? Well, let's look at the data. There were up to 80 distinct corporate brand placements in this film. 80, managed by specialized agencies. And this wasn't just your standard passive background stuff either. These brands were actively integrated to define who these characters were. Ben rides a Triumph Bonneville motorcycle, right? That signals his rugged masculinity. The offices are packed with those brand new Apple iMac G4s, telling us this is a modern, wealthy workspace. Even Andy's everyday beauty aesthetic was actually a highly coordinated, co-promoted campaign with Revlon and Stila Cosmetics. The film actively normalized early 2000s consumerism by directly linking luxury purchases to professional and romantic success. And that brings us to the crown jewel of our explainer, pun intended, Section 5, the $6 million diamond. This was the ultimate culmination of this crazy intersection between cinematic art and luxury marketing. The entire climax of the film revolves around the DeLauer Diamond Gala, and specifically the spectacular Isadora diamond. This thing is an 80-carat, radiant-cut, fancy yellow diamond, masterfully paired with that iconic butter yellow Carolina Herrera silk gown. Now, from a gemological standpoint, that distinct yellow color only happens when nitrogen impurities bond with carbon atoms deep inside the Earth during formation. So it is incredibly rare and, as you might guess, incredibly valuable. I mean, so valuable that it was worth $6 million back in 2003. And here is the absolute kicker. Harry Winston did not just provide some fake glass replica. No way. They loaned the actual, real necklace to the production. Guarding this authentic $6 million centerpiece required intense, real-world security protocols right there on the film set. We're talking armored transport vehicles, and get this, those armed Harry Winston security personnel, they were actually used as on-screen extras in the movie just so they could keep a real eye on the necklace while the cameras were rolling. Finally, we arrive at Section 6, the rom-com's downfall. Because we really need to step back and examine the legacy this incredibly profitable, brand-heavy machine left behind for Hollywood as a whole. Critics from outlets like the AV Club make a really compelling argument that the massive success of this specific film actually shifted the entire genre. Think about the 1990s. We got romantic comedies with these eclectic, highly textured, lived-in worlds. Very Nora Ephron, right? But How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days came along and proved that you could take a super thin, formulaic plot, code it in a glossy, highly polished consumer aesthetic, cast two incredibly charismatic leads, and rake in almost $180 million. It effectively transformed the genre into an efficient, sanitized platform for selling luxury lifestyles. So, I'll leave you with this provocative thought to ponder today. Did the ultimate rom-com success story actually script the genre's demise? By proving to studio executives that they didn't really need to invest in deep, character-driven scripts as long as they had enough shiny product placements and big star power, did this movie set a template that eventually just completely exhausted audiences? It is definitely a fascinating way to look at a movie we all know and love. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and I will catch you next time.